Okay, so in the final video for this section of the course about moral theories, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to virtue ethics. And I want to talk about virtue ethics because it's a different way of thinking about morality than utilitarianism and deontology. So it provides a different perspective for the moral reasoning we're going to be doing throughout the semester. Okay, so the general principle for virtue ethics is that we should always act in accordance with the virtues or as a truly virtuous person would. Right, so when you want to ask yourself whether or not a particular action is morally permissible, you simply ask yourself, would a truly virtuous person do that thing? And if so, then you should also do that thing. If the virtuous person would not perform that action, then you should also not perform that action. So let's get into the important points. Number one is that morality isn't simply about following a set of principles. Right, so when we were talking about utilitarianism and deontology, what you're supposed to do is just follow each of those principles, either the categorical imperative or the principle of maximizing utility. And that's all you have to do, just follow the principles. For a virtue ethicist, you have to do more than just follow the principles. You actually have to strive to develop your own moral character, right? So it's about personal excellence. We need to become the best person that we can possibly be. And why is that? Well, because when you become the best person you can, when you become as virtuous as you can be, then you'll embody those virtues and then you'll have the proper dispositions to act accordingly, right? So if you're truly virtuous, you will just have the right dispositions in each scenario, right? You'll always act from the virtues and not just be forcing yourself to act in accordance with some principle, right? So it's about human excellence, and when you're that excellent, you just do the right thing. The second important point is that, of course, as with all of these theories, right, there's some disagreement internally. Here, the disagreement is over what the virtues are. Right, so what virtues does the truly virtuous person have? We're not going to settle that question, but just so you get a feel for it, some of the common examples of the virtues are benevolence, honesty, loyalty, compassion, fairness. Right, so those are just some of the virtues that we'll be keeping in mind as we're talking about virtue ethics or looking at problems from a virtue ethics perspective. And then the third important point is that according to virtue ethics, our motivations matter a lot. Right? So it's not enough to just do the right thing. Right? We also have to be motivated in the proper ways. So why is this important? Well, if you are a Kantian, right? If you're talking about the deontology perspective, for Kant, it's okay as long as you're performing an action from a sense of duty, right? You see that it's the right thing to do, and you're motivated by that sense of duty to perform that action. For a virtue ethicist, that's not enough, right? We need to be motivated by virtuous feelings, right? So when we save somebody from drowning, it shouldn't just be, oh man, it's my duty. That's morally right, so I guess I have to go do that. No, we need to be motivated by feelings of compassion, right? This person is in danger and the compassionate person would save them, and you're actually motivated by that feeling. So your motivations matter for a virtue ethicist. You need to be motivated by the feelings that the virtues produce. Okay, and then so let's look at some examples of virtue ethicist reasoning in bioethics. And so one question you could ask is abortion permissible? And the virtue ethicist will say, well, we can't just give you a universal yes or no here. It's going to depend on the reason the person has for wanting an abortion. All right, so let's look at two possible reasons someone could have for wanting an abortion. Someone could say, look, I want an abortion because I'm afraid of being a parent. The virtue ethicist would say, well, no, that's morally wrong then. You're acting from the vice of cowardice, right? You're letting fear motivate you there. So you're not acting as the truly virtuous person would. You're not acting in accordance with the virtue of courage. So for that particular person, with that reason, abortion would be impermissible. It would be morally wrong. What about this second reason here? So the woman wants the child, but knows it will have a significant genetic defect, which will greatly hamper its quality of life. Here the virtue ethicist would say, look, abortion is morally permissible for this person because they're acting from the virtues of compassion and courage. Right? She's showing courage because even though she wants the child, she desires the child, she's going against her desires for the good of this other thing, and obviously showing compassion because she's only doing this or trying to get this abortion because she doesn't want the child to suffer. Right. So she's properly motivated. She's motivated as a virtuous person would be motivated, and so abortion would be permissible. And so the important thing to see here is that it's going to depend on your motivations and your reasons for wanting an abortion. We can't just give a universal proclamation one way or the other. Let's look at one other quick example. According to a virtue ethicist, are you obligated to donate blood? Well, what would the truly virtuous person do? It seems likely that the truly virtuous person would donate blood because they would be motivated by feelings of compassion, benevolence, and fairness. Right? They see that people are suffering or dying without the proper supply of blood out in the world. Right? So they're motivated by that compassion to help others, benevolence to improve the well-being of others, and fairness to know that maybe somebody has suffered a sickness, an illness, or an accident that wasn't their fault, and so I could save them at very little cost to myself. Right? It's just a couple minutes in a chair giving blood in a painless way. Right? It seems like that's fair for you to give up that time in order to save somebody's life. So seems like you would be morally obligated to donate blood according to a virtue ethicist, because the truly virtuous person would be motivated by the virtues to donate blood. Okay, so that's it for our introduction to the moral theories. Obviously, there were a few more theories presented in the book. So if you have any questions about any of those other theories, please feel free to email me and we can discuss them independently. But otherwise, I think the book does a great job explaining them, so we don't need a video for them. So hopefully now you're feeling comfortable with thinking in terms of the different moral theories, right? You can access the different type of reasoning that each theory uses. And now we're going to use that to look at actual issues within bioethics. Thank you.